rebut to the last speaker, the Honorable German Figueroa. The honorable member in opposition now seems to have the answers, telling the government what to do. And this clearly shows, Mr. Speaker, the incompetence of the APNU, AFC when they were in government. Mr. Speaker, allow me first to congratulate the senior minister in the office of the President with responsibility for finance, the Honorable Dr. Ashni Kumar Singh, and the staff of the Ministry of Finance to produce a budget that sets the framework for Guyana's growth and development, the forward movement of our people and their advancement. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 is the embodiment of hope, the spirit of optimism, and the definition of one Guyana. It is not my intention, Mr. Speaker, to drag you and the Guyanese along an aimless road of negativity. It is not my intention, Mr. Speaker, to drag you and the Guyanese into a debate that seeks to castigate Guyana. Mr. Speaker, it is my intention to school the honorable opposition members. I will serve as a guide for them to come to the irrefutable position that Budget 2023 is good for the poor, working class people of this country, and has indeed. The measures are all laudable and will have an impact on the lives of the ordinary folks when its fiscal bite becomes a reality. Mr. Speaker, since assuming office in August 2020, the PPPC government has transformed the economic landscape of our country through its budgetary allocations. In the last 2 years in office, Mr. Speaker, the PPPC government has improved the quality of the country's social and physical infrastructure, improved access to shelter through the provision of housing to low-income families across the country, expanded the economic base of the country, the economic base of the country, improve the competitiveness of the domestic economy, improve the country's human capital, strengthen the national institution responsible for safety and justice, and reduce poverty and inequality, maintain fiscal prudence, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, restored hope in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the 2023 national budget stands at $781.9 billion and coincides with the theme, improving lives today, building prosperity for tomorrow. The APNU AFC, Mr. Speaker, and I will want to ask your permission, Mr. Speaker, to give a synopsis of their track record. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC legacy of moving Guyana backward did not start in 2015. It began much earlier. Since attaining a combined majority of 1 in the November 11 elections, the APNU-AFC weaponized the parliamentary process for selfish political gains at the expense of the Guyanese people's well-being. The APNU-AFC deliberately blocked $90 billion in programs designed by the PPPC government to benefit the Guyanese. Their goal was to weaken the ability of the PPPC government to deliver on its mandate while creating a political environment that fostered discontent among our people. As a political tactic, Mr. Speaker, they waged a campaign of misinformation in a calculated plan to design, distort, and obscure the truth. In 2015, Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC combined their operations and used their armory of tricks and deception to win political power with a parliamentary majority of 1. Rather than progressing their menu of promises as outlined in their manifesto, they mismanaged the resources of Guyana, harmed our democracy through unilateral and unconstitutional actions, incompetently negotiated many state contracts, bungled by key investment opportunities, and in the process damaged prospects and the economic well-being of Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, the APNUAFC suppressed the work of constitutional bodies such as the Integrity Commission and the Audit Office by reducing their budget and curtailing their independence. Through their actions, Mr. Speaker, they have been found to be the most incompetent government in our entire independent history. Mr. Speaker, one of their first acts of the APNU-AFC in office was to offer themselves and their inner cabal huge salary increases, leaving behind scores of nurses, teachers, members of the discipline services, and other workers. They promised to end expenditure wastage, but instead, Mr. Speaker, they more than double spending on international travel by an increase over $1 billion during their tenure. They spent over $2 billion on dietary supplies. They increased spending on security service by over $2 billion and rental and maintenance of buildings and equipment by over $3 billion. If that was not enough, Mr. Speaker, they then embarked on a program that ignored their 2015 manifesto promises and instead made ad hoc decisions to enrich themselves. Mr. Speaker, during their 2015 campaign, the APNUFC made several promises to the Amerindians, which included more jobs, improved health care, education, and the acceleration of the land titling program. Mr. Speaker, however, weeks after they took office, they fired 1,972 Amerindian community support officers and withdrew funds to finance the Amerindian community development plans. Shame. Who the cap fits, let them wear it, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member, you have to withdraw shame.
I withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they took away some 6,000 solar panel systems which were earmarked for Amerindian communities, dismantled the Amerindian land titling unit, and scuttled the Amerindian land titling project started by the PPPC government. Amerindian lives have changed for the worse under the APNU-AFC with increased taxes, VAT on hinterland fuel and travel, neglect of hinterland roads, shortages of medicine at health centers, and declining jobs. They have reduced Amerindian presence on the Amerindian People's Commission and attempted to weaken Amerindian rights through a revision of the Amerindian Act. Mr. Speaker, to add, the APNUAFC also established a commission of inquiry to investigate Amerindian lands, while one of their ministers, when they were in government, called the Amerindian people avaricious, and to this effect, they should not benefit from the proceeds of the oil and gas. However, Mr. Speaker, all of this, the APNU-AFC did to our Amerindian people. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House are building back the House starting from the foundation with resilience because we care for every citizen and the Amerindians are priority. Never again, and I ask my honorable members to say with me, never again, APNU fool the Amerindian population, but we will never be fooled again. Mr. Speaker, I am not finished telling you about the horror story that the APNUAFC were the authors of. They have failed the miners and loggers by imposing a tax on capital equipment, leaving hinterland roads in a state of collapse and not offering adequate security. The overall effect of such policy polarities on the part of the APNUAFC caused a significant decline in economic activities in the country. Mr. Speaker, the APNUAFC discriminated against the business community by assaulting transparent transactions, using political discretion to process incentives, disposing of state lands and other state assets, and procuring goods and services using secretive processes that were only available to business persons close to the APNU-AFC. Mr. Speaker, the APNU-AFC promised to increase investments, lower taxation, provide jobs, and stimulate wealth creation. Instead, Mr. Speaker, they increased taxes and fees, failed to attract new investments and created jobs, and there was a decumulation of wealth in Guyana. They have failed to offer a coherent plan to address these issues. Mr. Speaker, however, Budget 2023 gives every Guyanese a chance to good education, access good paying jobs, be able to start their own businesses, raise and provide for their family, own their own homes, live in a safe and secure environment, and retire with dignity. Budget 2023 gives every Guyanese full access to equal health care, safe water, the ability to participate in sports and recreation, and free practice of their religion and culture. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023, 41.4% larger than Budget 2022, is undoubtedly the largest budget and is fully financed with no new taxes. Budget 2023 is the first budget to benefit from the sale of Guyana's carbon credits, which will amount to 31.3 billion in revenue in 2023, alongside a transfer of 208.9 billion from the NRF to the Consolidated Fund this year. Budget 2023 strikes a balance between addressing pressing needs for today and the critical investments needed for tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, 3 billion in salary adjustments benefiting 5,000 healthcare workers and 9,000 members of the discipline services. Increase the monthly income tax threshold from 75,000 to 85,000 monthly, releasing a total of 3.3 billion into the hands of taxpayers and removing 12,000 taxpayers from the tax net. Mr. Speaker, the Because We Care cash grant from 25,000 to 35,000. This will benefit, Mr. Speaker, over 214 school children in public and private schools and will replace an additional of 2.1 billion in the hands of their parents. Mr. Speaker, 10 billion was allocated for the expansion of the part-time job, and we heard all sorts of comments about the part-time job, but Mr. Speaker, the opposition does not understand what the part-time job is. 5 billion allocated for an additional cost of living measures to be determined from the ongoing community engagement. So, Mr. Speaker, we're moving with increase of the old age pension from 28,000 to 33,000, placing an additional of 4.4 billion of disposable income in the hands of 73,000 pensioners in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the increase of public assistance from 14,000 to 16,000 to benefit 29,000 persons, and this will place 700 million of disposable income to these individuals. Mr. Speaker, 1.88 billion to commence the rehabilitation, expansion, and reconstruction of the Georgetown, New Amsterdam, and Linden hospitals, as well as 4 telemedicine centers in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. 830 million to complete the design and commence construction of the Bartica Regional Hospital. 1 billion to retrofit and upgrade health centers, health posts, and other facilities across the country. 237 million to upgrade Karasabay, Anai, and Sand Creek health centers into district hospitals providing radiology and laboratory services in Region 9. 2.5 billion for purchases of medical and non-medical equipment in 2023 across all 10 administrative regions of Guyana. Over 500 million for the training of health care professionals, more than 900 million to address non-communicable diseases, including mental health. I'm sorry the opposition is not here. I think this, Mr. Speaker, would have been good for them to benefit from. Mr. Speaker, in 2023, a sum of 94.4 billion has been allocated to further improve access to and the quality of education for all Guyanese. 1.4 billion to further upgrade and extend water supply systems and construct wells in several hinterland communities of regions 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9. 100 million to support activities associated with observance of International Decade for People of African Descent. Also, Mr. Speaker, there is an allocation for the support of the office of the Leader of the Opposition.
Before you go on to any other, you'd need an extension, honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask for an extension from my colleague to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, honorable member. You have 5 minutes to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Amerindian and hinterland development. The PPPC government's commitment following its manifesto promises results in the prioritization of the Guyana's first people's education, health, housing, infrastructure, social well-being, employment, youth development, and development of the village economy. 4.7 billion allocated for Amerindian development programs and initiatives. Mr. Speaker, do you want to hear more? Here is more. Mr. Speaker, 2.7 billion budgeted for the Amerindian Development Fund. 233 Amerindian communities will positively benefit from this allocation. 5 billion for hinterland road development. 500 million to advance Amerindian land titling activities to safeguard and improve the security of land tenure enjoyed by Guyana's indigenous peoples. 124 million for the celebration of Amerindian heritage in 2023. Mr. Speaker, this budget is a people's budget. 91.8 million for the National Two Shows Conference. 500 million for the construction and equipping of ITC hubs in Amerindian villages. Mr. Speaker, the indigenous people will be at the forefront to directly benefit from the PPPC government's effort on climate change finance, with 15% of revenue received from the sale of carbon credits going towards investment in Amerindian village sustainability plans produced by villages and communities. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2023 gives hope to every Guyanese, a hope that all our people will prosper and all our people will have an improvement in their lives. Mr. Speaker, it is with this hope that will drive us along the dream that we will see every Guyanese accomplishing their ambition right here in their homeland, Guyana. Mr. Speaker, together we will as a people. Together we must as a people. Together we will move Guyana, this as one Guyana. Mr. Speaker, I commend Budget 2023 to this House for passage, and I thank you.